button, so we'll see what happens when I get past that point. It says it's now streaming live on YouTube, so that's something, right?
We are global.
We are. Here we are. Look at us.
Just as I was walking in here, here it is Saturday morning, rainy in western Arkansas, in a little town where you got more cattle and horses than humans. and I grabbed another iced coffee dose and said bye to my mom. I said, well, I guess I'm going global now.
That's right.
Jeez.
That's Rome, I tell you. So hopefully we're all good here. I paused it on my end so I wouldn't have, myself talking 30 seconds ago, running in our thing here. So I think that'll be fine. Maybe it would be better for me to mute it and let it play. I really haven't the slightest idea. Hi, everybody. I'm RJ Nestor. I'm a business and communication executive coach. I have never done a YouTube Live before, so hopefully this is looking great and sounding great. I'm here with the Rome journaling guru, Tracy Winchell. So happy to have her. She says it's raining where she is. It's gorgeous where I am here in West Virginia. So that also, though, means there are people mowing the lawns outside. So we'll see. Hopefully it won't be too loud in the background of what I've got going here. So
Anthony says we're good. Our camera is ace.
Excellent.
That's you, RJ.
That's perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Sounds like we're
There's
in good
Andy.
Shape here. Yay. I am
Thomas?
Probably going to be vaguely hopeless at keeping track of what's being said in the live chat, but they're here. We know they're here. And so that's a good start here. Let me kind of shift that over there so I can see that on the side. Fantastic. All right. So now I'm going to stop making weird excuses for everything, and let's dive into what we want to talk about here. Tracy, you are the person from whom I learned the term interstitial journaling, and also the person from whom I learned that journaling was not taking a leather-bound volume to the top of a mountain for 5 hours and writing with a quill. Which, I mean, it saved me a lot of time, but it did cost me some exercise. So it's great. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I have a lot of how I used, IJ for productivity that I can share and intersperse throughout, but why don't you take it away and kind of lead us through some of this journey here?
Well, first, I want to share my Rome screen. I know, RJ, you're going to have a master public Rome graph to consolidate all of this, but
I'll share that in the chat here while you're talking. Perfect.
Good. So I'm just going to get started here and share my screen because, I want us to start with an exercise, because what is Rome unless you're actually doing? Can you see my screen? Okay.
I can. Yes.
Good. So here are the questions I want us to think about. Just answer one of these, and if you have your graph open, and I hope you do, then answer one of these. I'll copy these and put them in the graph. Do you currently engage in? Actually, put this in the chat. I'm sorry. Do you currently engage in some form of logging your time? And another question, we're really curious about how you use Rome. And then the third option for a question is, how do you use Rome to plan your day? Any of those in the chat will work awesomely. I'm going to post these questions here. And let's see if I can multitask and run over here to the... Okay, I got that in the YouTube chat.
Look at you.
Hey, Rome Hacker's here.
Hey, Rome Hacker.
Maggie Delano. How are y'all? Thomas? Cool. So how are we doing with these? Don't be shy now. I'm trying to watch both of these, so
I did share them as well in the public graph link that I
good.
that I shared
Thank
there in
you.
the chat. So there are now many different ways to get access to those questions there.
Okay. I'm not getting a ton of feedback, and that's fine. Um, so I think, RJ and I talked for, I don't know, 10 minutes about defining interstitial journaling. And it's really just a day log. It's a fancy name for just tracking your time. And for some professions, tracking time is just what you do. But for somebody like me, I remember the first time I started tracking my time for work when I was in an office setting. It was exhausting. Um, and so when I came to just work for myself, I knew I needed to keep a day log to understand how I was spending my time, because not only was I losing time, I was losing attention. And at the end of the day, I was exhausted and I needed to understand, I'm a huge baseball fan and I know we've got a global audience, so this may not resonate, but when when a pitcher has runners on base, those are high stress innings, and it's less about the number of pitches he throws, and because it's about how taxing it is to make sure that runner doesn't score. And so for me, I was stressing myself out a lot because not only was I using time, I was spending energy on stuff that I had no business spending energy on. Facebook, Twitter, um, text messages, stuff like that. And when I really just needed to be focusing. So that's when I started keeping a day log before I ever knew what an interstitial journal was. RJ, I would love for you to weigh in on how you discovered interstitial journaling and just generally what it means to you to keep an interstitial journal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I learned what interstitial journaling meant from, I don't know if you've heard of her, but Tracy Winchell was somebody who taught me what interstitial journaling was. I had been using, it's an interesting thing because I think defining it is relevant, because I had been doing something that is very much like interstitial journaling, but not calling it that. And the name is very important. I think naming something gives you power over it. It gives it, make it a better tool for you to be able to use when you have a clearer picture of what it is. Calling it and understanding it as interstitial journaling really opened it up for me as a tool for productivity. So for me, interstitial journaling is about when I'm writing for clarity, when I'm writing to understand something that I'm working on now. It's about, and this one is huge for me, when I'm bridging between contexts. So, I think most of the people in the Roam community who are aware of me, if you're on my channel and subscribe to that, you know that I did the GTD course, Powerful Task Management and Roam Research. And that was the first thing I did in Roam, was built my GTD structure that I'd been using for years. And so I've had this, GTD concept of context sort of front of mind when I was thinking about, well, what can I use this interstitial journaling for? Anything that has a specific time aspect to it, a specific location aspect to it, the people that you're with or the projects that you're working on, all of those are different contexts. What interstitial journaling allows me to do is limit a lot of those startup energy costs and context switching energy costs that are so much a part of just trying to get through a work day, whether it be the beginning of the day. Maybe I've written a little note to myself, left some breadcrumbs from the previous day of, this is what I finished on this project today and this is what I want to do next. that really powerfully reduces my startup costs the next day. A lot of the reason we're unproductive with things is we just don't know what to do first. And so we
Yeah.
don't do anything. And if you
Yeah.
have a little note from yesterday's me telling me that what I'm supposed to do today, that makes a huge difference in my being able to start it. And the same thing happens just in a switch from context from project to project. Write a little note about what I just did, write a little note about what I'm about to do. So in short, and I'll talk about when we share our stuff a little bit later, I'll talk about that in a bit more detail, how I actually implement that. But for me, interstitial journaling is journaling that I'm using for getting things going or keeping things going. It solves what I call the in between. I wrote a note in my Zettelkasten a while back that said always be in the middle. And it was a productivity note tied to another, a few notes that are around the territory of it's hard to get started on something. So don't stop before you start. Get a little into it and then wrap it. So the next time you come to that project, you're starting from a place that you already know, you're already in a little. That's what interstitial journaling does for me. Is that it gives me that tool to get a little into the project, so that I can be in the middle when I start, rather than have all that energy startup cost associated with it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So we got some neat responses. Tally is working to use IJ with Rome. Of course, Andy has written a tremendous thread about interstitial journaling in Rome. Nathan says, I primarily log important phone calls, activities, bill payments that I'll want as a reference in the future. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, no time logging for me. I use Rome for Rome to done or GTD like processes. Tommy, interstitial journaling is very intermittent. Me too. Hard for me to find the right level of detail. Spoiler alert, that's what I'm going to talk about. Anthony does interstitial journaling, but not on Rome. Okay. Let's see. Move. Yeah. One of the things that's fun, and in fact, I just noticed that Cortex Futura did his atomic essay today on interstitial journaling,
Cool.
which is awesome. I'm going to post that over here on the YouTube channel so you can read Lucas's work today. I have not read it yet, but I will eagerly read it, and I know it is fascinating. I also want to post something that Andy Henson wrote maybe earlier this week. There were some really neat conversations that Rome Hacker started. So thank you for participating. Isn't that fun? I just love this part. So with that, I want to just share my screen again. I'm all over the place, so I'm having trouble driving my car. All right. So here is when I use interstitial journaling. And here, can you see this okay? Pull this up. This is a recent example when I was messing around on my personal graph and trying some things. This is not my current methodology, but this is an example when I was doing a lot of heavy lifting. Mondays and part of Tuesdays are my heavy lifting day. I don't take any appointments. This is the day I do the Cal Newport deep work stuff. However, pretty often those Mondays and half Tuesdays are less about 4-hour blocks of doing the same thing, and they're doing an hour of this, 90 minutes of that. And at the time, I needed to keep a food log for my health, and I was keeping the food log in a separate place in my Rome graph, and it was so confusing. I couldn't figure out where to put everything. So I thought, what would happen if I used Rome 42 smart blocks to create some visual differentiation? It's hard for an Arkansan to say. So that I can just put everything in what I've now renamed as a captain's log, because it just sounded fun. And I was talking to Rome hacker about this, and I just thought I'd make it fun. So that's an example of what that looked like, just different activities for different things so that I can see them. When I use interstitial journaling, it's about heavy lifting days with lots of task switching. Can say differentiation, can't say switching. It helps me identify and prevent the attention and task leaks, which is huge. Like, here's the thing: now that I've been doing this for several years, it's less of identifying those leaks and more about preventing them, because I do not want to have to write another interstitial journal entry after I've said I'm going to write the thing for my conversation with RJ, right? If I've hit that timestamp and put that in my interstitial journaling, and then I open a tab and start messing around on Twitter, I got to create a new entry. And I don't want to have to do that because I'm on the clock with RJ in that moment. So it's accountability. It's like, I don't want to have to do the paperwork that's necessary for me to not do what I said I was about to do. Plus, when I'm on the clock, if it's going to take me 30 minutes to put together an outline for this workshop with RJ, then the next time I do one of these, wouldn't it be awesome to do it in 25 minutes? And so the other thing, this timestamp engages my competitive spirit. I want to get stuff done and I want to do it just a little bit faster, but I also want to be accurate at it. Instead of speeding through it, I just want to know how fast can I get this task done well in comparison to the last time I did this little project. The other thing, and this is what's fun about talking interstitial journaling with you, RJ. You blew my mind a couple of weeks ago, when you said that for you, productivity is about conversations with yourself. I think that's brilliant. You're the productivity pro. For me, because Rome lets me track emotion so well, I'm able to leave myself a breadcrumb trail for emotions and thoughts so that I can review those stress points like I explained a little bit ago. So I can't prevent the future. I can't always prevent my mindset from kind of going to crap. But after I come out of those moments, I can evaluate my breadcrumbs and understand, okay, what worked to get me out of that moment? Oh, taking Winchester for a walk, or getting up and stretching, or maybe it's getting a good night's sleep the night before. I'm able to understand which tools worked so that when I'm in that mental mindset that I don't much like me when I'm in that mental mindset, now I can make a decision. Tracy, you're in that mental mindset. The last time you wrote in your interstitial journal about being in this mindset, you made a choice to lash out at somebody. Well, how about we not make that choice? Okay, what's a better choice? My interstitial journal is going to tell me that. And I think that is fascinating, that I'm leaving myself emotional breadcrumbs to influence my future decisions. So here's where I don't use interstitial journaling. Full on confession, I have not used my interstitial log much at all in the last 2 weeks because I've had way too many peopling weeks. And it's my anxiety levels through the roof. I love people, but too much peopling kind of stresses me a little bit. And that's probably some work I need to do on my 12 steps, because control issues. So I don't use interstitial journaling when I'm only doing one project. Like if I'm creating a course, I just start a brand new field notes notebook that's called that project. And I just write whatever's in it, whether it's a timestamp or a runtime or picking up a thing I need to do. Because if I'm on my computer creating something, especially in video, I don't want to use the RAM to come back over to Roam or any other app. I'm just going to use an old notebook or a new notebook for that task. And then at the end of this big task that I've done, I have a whole notebook that I'm probably never going to look at again, but it is so awesome. It's another tangible um, uh, sign that I did something huge. So I'm going to go old school notebook for just kind of getting the residue of my brain out somewhere. Again, if I'm in the middle of a peopling day or week, and when I'm on away from my office. Here in Arkansas, we're in much better shape in terms of the COVID numbers, and I've actually been working off site a little bit, and it doesn't seem to work to use interstitial journaling when I'm in a bookstore with my headphones on, and I don't know why. Maybe I need to try that, but that's another case when I don't use interstitial journaling. We got questions. I'll stop sharing my screen, and then I really want to know when RJ uses IJ and when RJ doesn't use IJ, and I'll go over here in the chat and listen up.
Absolutely. I hear RJ and IJ and I just get very confused. I've been called, I was born in 1979, so I was called JR a lot because Dallas was still on the air. So I got a lot of JR. I got a lot of OJ too, but mercifully that went away around 1995. So I was good as far as that goes. Yeah, so I'm going to take a quick step back. You mentioned something, and you said that I blew your mind saying it, so I will take care to keep your mind in mind intact this time. But I had a revelation for me at least. I don't know if it's a revelation to anybody else, that communication underlies just about everything we do. We talk about writing is thinking, and I think that's true. I'm not so sure that it's writing per se as it is communication is thinking. That the writing tracks it. You have a way of, putting it in a trackable form. You can go back and you can look at it again, which is important to thinking because then obviously you can compound upon that. But where I'm going with this from a productivity standpoint, when we think about productivity on an organizational level, it is natural for us to understand that communication is critical because we say, well, this organization is falling apart. They're not getting things done the way they need to because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. This person doesn't communicate correctly with this person, and this person's not communicating with this person, and they're just dropping the ball. What isn't as clear, I think, is that when we're talking about personal productivity, there is a communication component underlying that too. Here's my example. So I'm working in an organization and I'm managing a team, and I delegate to one of the people on my team. I say, I'm going to need you to go do this project, but I give them no framework. I give them no indicators of what would be a successful outcome. I provide them with no particular vision at all, no tools, nothing. And I give them this project. When they don't do that project well, whose fault is that? And now we could say, yes, it's partly their fault. They could have been more proactive. They could have sorted through it better. But on certainly some level, and I think maybe arguably most level, that's my fault because I did not give them what they needed to succeed. Now, I want you to take that organizational metaphor, and instead of talking about a manager, I want to talk about today me. And instead of talking about the team person who I delegated that, I want to talk about future me. So if I today provide no framework, no sense of what the right outcome is going to be for something to future me, is it really future me's fault when I don't get those things accomplished? And now, granted, future me could be more proactive. Future me could do a better job of lining those things up for herself. But here's the thing about that. Today me is yesterday me's future me, and I don't feel terribly proactive today. So how do you think I'm going to feel tomorrow? And I think that's where we get that's right. That's where we get into trouble, is that we have an expectation that we're going to remember the exact right now I have this picture, I know what the thing is, I know what I want to do, and I think that's going to still be there tomorrow, and it's likely not going to be. The momentum isn't going to be there, the image of the structure isn't going to be there. What can solve that? Communicating with yourself. Interstitial journaling is that form of communicating with myself that layers that in there. Now, of course, I use getting things done methodology as well, but that's another form of communicating with your future self. It's a little bit more structured. So the question then, when do I use interstitial journaling? I use it to keep myself in touch with my big picture, and I use it for the moment-to-moment interactions with myself that I need to keep myself going from one project to the next, or some kind of a context switch, things like that. It's for the big and it's for the very little. And it's much more fluid than GTD. GTD is very structured. And the way I have it built in my graph, it's very structured. I mean, I don't mean to suggest that interstitial journaling has no structure at all. It does, but it's much more, just kind of, where am I? Do the thing and write the thing and do it right here. And it's allows me then to stay in touch with what past me wanted today me to do, and to help future me do a more effective job of implementing what I'm doing right now. I do want to point out, from a productivity perspective, that my goal is to provide the tools to future me, not to restrict future me. And I think that's another reason why I really like interstitial journaling, is I give myself a framework, I give myself some ideas, I give myself some expectations, but I don't tie myself down to anything in particular. Future me may have a better idea of what to do, but I make it so much more effective and so much more likely that what I need to get accomplished will get accomplished if I just write a little bit of it down, leave myself a few breadcrumbs to keep myself, oriented. So there isn't such a big startup cost each day. So there isn't such, a complicated, well, now, what did I think about this? What was I doing with that? You can solve that by just recording some of that in that interstitial journal. And so that's really it for me. I mean, I do a lot of writing otherwise that may or may not be quote unquote interstitial, but it's certainly journaling for, tracking certain things and planning what my day is going to be and doing all of that. But by and large, from a productivity standpoint, it's just about that communication with myself so that I don't lose the thread of what I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay, before you go forward,
Yes.
I've got a question from Norman, because Norman has the best questions ever. IJ equals a sense of acceptable fluidity in its structure versus GTD's process-based perspective. Is that kind of what you're saying?
It sounds right to me. Yes. I think that he means exactly what I was saying there. That I can, and now, of course, if those of you who've seen me implement GTD in Roam, the reason I love it in Roam is that Roam provides a fluidity on the inbound side of my GTD. All I have to do is tag something inbox wherever I am, and I know now it's going to be into the structure. But once it's in the structure, there's a pretty, process-driven way that's going to be consistent for doing that. With the interstitial journaling, it's just sort of, it doesn't have to travel anywhere in particular. I can use my IJ tag as a filter within projects, or I can go to that page and filter, to specific days, or I could, there are a lot of different ways that I can interact with it to get a look at how it's helping me and how it's bridging those contexts for me, and to go back and see, okay, well, what did I say at the end of the day yesterday so I can get started today? It's very easy to do that in Roam, but I don't have to put it anywhere in particular in order to do that. So absolutely, it's very, very fluid. I think that's an astute observation there from from Norm.
So Rome Hacker says your approach is based on reality, plan for the future, but be prepared to adapt when the future comes. And then Jessica and Brandon each have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica says, I'm curious how RJ integrates GTD and IJ into your daily workflow. Did I use all the acronyms in this sentence right? I think
Yes,
so.
RJ was definitely correct. I think the rest look good too, I think.
And then Brandon, do you have some examples of how IJ looks in Rome? I think I do something that might be IJ, but I'm curious how your processes look in your graph. And so RJ, when you kind of, as you move into your, when you IJ and when you don't IJ,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look for some examples in my graph.
Yeah.
That we can kind of show Brandon. And then Norm's response to how you answer that question. Cheers for that, RJ. That is a great rationale, especially within the Rome context. And then Nikki has a question. So are tags keys here?
I think that probably meant key singular or tags key to this thing. And for at least if I'm reading the question correctly, for me, yes. For me, Rome is this beautiful lattice of page references. That is, now I use block references too, depending on context. But for me, every workflow that I have in Rome relies heavily on me building connections. A good example. This is IJ, and I log my meetings, and that is effectively the same thing. I put a time, I put the person, I put the type of meeting as in a logistical way, like is it on Zoom, is it a coaching, is it a voice lesson if I'm teaching a singer, and then I indent under that, and then I take my notes for the meeting. And anytime there's a topic that's brought up or a project that's brought up, those are also going to get referenced in double brackets or with a hashtag, depending on how I feel in the moment, or how I have my own rationale. But I'm not going to go into that now because that's another whole philosophy that I'm not sure really matters to anyone else. But that way, I now have, rather than having a meeting note that's its own separate page that has to have metadata on it, that has a date tag and has the people who come to the meeting tag and all of that. All I have is a bullet on my daily notes page that has the type of meeting, the people who were there, the topics that were discussed, and all of the relevant notes. And now then, it's just this web. If I want to look to the last time I talked to Tracy Winchell about interstitial journaling, I go to Tracy's page and I filter by interstitial journaling. And there it is. The date, the meeting, everything we said, all of it's there. I can filter to that. And I don't need a bunch of dedicated pages. It can just live in my daily notes and then be beautifully drawn up whenever I need it via filter, via any of these other places. That's a long answer, Nikki, to the question there. Are tags key? But tags are key to literally everything I do. And I'll show it here in a minute when we get to that point. But what I do with interstitial journaling is the same. I just tag something hashtag IJ with the time, and then write whatever the note is and all of that. And that way, then it's connected in the moment with whatever project I'm in, because that project is already tagged in the top level, or I mean, I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. I think most of us Rome people know what I mean. Yes. Well, yeah. Why don't I just do it now, Tracy? Instead of me saying teasing to a moment later, why don't I just do it right now? You're such a smart person, Tracy.
Well, it's 30 something years of broadcasting.
There you go. See,
Maggie
exactly.
Maggie has a fantastic question. Curious about how IJ works with time blocking. She says, I'm pretty good at following the time blocks on my calendar. And I know that Ramses, he uses work cycles and a Pomodoro timer. And I don't know, I don't do that because it stresses me out. To like, I like the competition of putting a time a timestamp out there, but to put an end on it and the thing's going to go off, I get rushed and it's high stress for me. So I don't do that. in terms of Mondays being a heavy lifting day for me, I guess I probably don't do traditional time blocking. So you
I
got a
do
better answer than that?
something like it. And so I think I can address
Okay.
what Maggie is asking there. That was Maggie's question, you said, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So essentially, and now I'm in my demo graph here just because it's easier for me to kind of show things in a simpler way than what could look like to someone else chaos in my own graph. It's not to me. My quote about Rome users is that we're all power users in our own graphs. And then we look at someone else's and we're like, what madness?
I
But
don't know what this means.
exactly, it means something to somebody else. So I'm not the greatest at trying to type and talk at the same time, so I'll do the best I can here. Effectively, in my daily notes template, I'll have an agenda, I'll have daily tasks, and then I'll build my calendar down below. So, here I might have keeping an interstitial journal in Rome research with Tracy Winchell, and I'd have my notes for that under that, and so forth. So when I'm talking about, for me, the agenda is where the rubber meets the road from my getting things done system on a daily sense, in a daily sense. This in my framework, my AP productivity framework that I'm kind of working on developing into a course. I call that my planning phase. This is where I'm taking the all of the various things in the process of my GTD and building them in. So when I'm preparing my agenda, I'll take my notes that I have prepped down below here and reference them up. So I have a note that at 11 is when I have my meeting with Tracy, and then maybe I'll have, like, for instance, today I have mass at 5:30 because I'm a church musician, and then I'll go back through and I will say that means at 7 a.m. I can do something or other, and then at 1 a.m. or 1 a.m. no, 1 p.m. I can do something other, and then of course tonight I also have a thing with Khalil here on Inner Intellect. I don't have him in this one, but Inner Intellect event, and I have all of that on there as well. So I'll create this sort of time block template. And then I'll fill it with next actions in my GTD system, which I'm not going to dive into today because it's a completely other conversation. I will dive into that and I will fill it with block references from my GTD system based on the context I know I'll be in. So at 7, I know I'm going to be in my office. So I'll look at my next office list and say, okay, well, I'll probably want to do this and I'll probably want to do that. And I'll, put those in here and do all of that. Where that interacts with interstitial journaling is invariably, as I approach that block of time that I have created that has a few things in it, I will find the day of, when I'm in the moment, hey, you know what? That is not actually the thing that I want to do right now. That's not the thing that I have what my writing collaborator and I call the oomph. That's not the thing that I have the oomph for in this moment. I want to be working on something else. And so I will come down here into this and I'll do current time. That's the /. I just get CU typed and current time is the first thing up, tab that. And then I'll hashtag it IJ, not IG, IJ. And then start typing about the project or the thing that I'm working on. Let's say I can't get my mind wrapped around keeping Zoom research right now. Thinking of switching to AP productivity course work, and I'll take some notes there and do all that kind of stuff to kind of work through whatever is going on in my mind. And then maybe I'll go back and swap up what's in the block for the agenda, or maybe I'll just go on to start working on, create a new block here with the new current time and just start working on the new thing in this moment. And whatever that may be, all of that just lives in my daily notes page. So I don't know if that comprehensively answers your question, Maggie, but essentially the interweaving of the two things is that the GTD is the structured thing that I kind of build an agenda with a time block the day before, so that I have a sense of what I want to accomplish. The IJ is what I use in the moment to, facilitate my flow from one thing to the other, and also to log, maybe I chose to do something differently, maybe I chose to go this direction, maybe I chose to go that direction, and why, which can be useful to my future self looking back, as Tracy had pointed out a number of times, talking about how she uses it, but also is just useful in the moment at getting my mind wrapped around what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, and why it is that I'm feeling the oomph here versus the oomph there, as I move from one thing to another. So hopefully that also kind of answers the question of how I use and how I build my interstitial journal on the page, to a certain extent, at least.
Follow-up question from Maggie. Can IJ unintentionally enable procrastination from switching to the next task session?
Yeah, Cortex Futura posted a great thing about when to do meta work and when not to. IJ for me is meta work, and just as he said in his mini essay there, 100%. Sometimes I find myself using it as a way to dilly-dally rather than work. The good news is, interstitial journaling, by its nature of reflection on myself, I almost always catch myself. As I'm writing, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Am I just dilly-dallying here? And so I don't get very far into that flow before I have caught myself. And now possibly there have been times I haven't caught myself, but because of the nature of it, I don't procrastinate for long. And sometimes it's that kind of good procrastination where you are, what you're actually learning about yourself is that you don't have a clear image of what you need to do next, and that's why you're procrastinating. So I don't think, in the long run, I don't think it has too much of a threat of causing procrastination, because I actually think it kind of facilitates the discovery of why you might be procrastinating, if that makes sense.
We're getting lots and lots of yay for the practical examples.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I think, speaking of practical examples,
if I may answer Norm's question, yes, Norm, it is multiple entries, and it's because I want to be able to do them wherever the heck I am and not have to go. And I've done it both ways. I used to have a log where I would go to the log to do the interstitial journaling, and you know what? I didn't do it because there was a context switch to even get to the log. What I love about Roam is if I tag it IJ, it doesn't matter where it is. When I go back and filter stuff, I'm going to be able to find it. So I have found for myself that for facilitating flow, the more I can do just where I am right now, the more likely I am to do it.
Interesting. Because see, I actually do the opposite, and I may need to rethink that. Let me just, speaking of examples, let me just kind of show you in the public graph, in my public graph. This is all in my public graph. You're welcome to look at it. Let's see, where am I? Just to just let you see the sausage first. I have provided in today, underneath today's workshop, I've provided 4 samples. This one is actually how I set up my daily notes template. These 3 are interstitial journaling sort of smart block tags. So here's how it would work. I'm going to start my day by JJ Atomic. No, sorry. It's not gonna pull it up, is it? So this let me just show you how this works in my personal graph. Can you see my personal graph here?
Yeah.
So there we go. Comic. There's a ton of stuff here. Please don't try this at home, because I got a lot of stuff happening here. So this is sort of my morning stack. And then I write stuff in my captain's log here. That's just where I prefer keeping my stuff. And normally I have my daily notes page on one tab, and then I just open this up separately in another tab. And that's just my captain's log, and it's where I put stuff. So most of the time I'm going to go JJIJ while we're keeping things really IJ, RJ meta. And I, I kind of like this playfulness because for me, I was taking the interstitial journaling stuff way too seriously, and it seemed so stressful. And I just wanted to lighten it up a little bit and make it fun. So that's why I've got the formatting tags, part of that. But part of it is just um, so that I can keep different things in the same thing. So thing one here, and then somewhat like RJ, when I need to do a follow up. Why? And then maybe make some sort of a note about what it feels like to be finished. And then I'm not a consistent Zettler, but I want to be. So I set up this tag, heavy Zettel, to just kind of put some stuff in there. And then my food log, JJ Food. And I wanted a little bit of formatting so that I could remind myself lunch, and then the food. And so by the time I'm finished, I end up with just a big line of stuff that I can see what is. Now, when I'm heavily logging my food for irritable bowel discomfort, then I'm probably just going to go ahead at the end of the day and move that into a separate food log. But I don't want to deal with that in the middle of the day. Again, I'm working my captain's log on a completely separate graph than I am my daily notes page. And that's because on my daily notes page, I also have a setup that helps me know what tasks showed up on my Rome 42 automation. Plus, I work heavily on my Ship 30 here. I've got a little setup here. And pretty often, I'm also going to have a third tab open for Rome 42, or I'll just do it over here in the right sidebar. So you can see here today's daily notes page. At the end of the day, if I'm doing a heavy food log thing, I'm just going to drag everything down here because I want to be able to see the food log in its context. I know that's an extra step and it's kind of crazy, but it makes sense to me. And I'm okay doing something that I can just pull up the food log because I want to isolate that one day. And that's just how I do that.
I may have a child screaming upstairs. I believe somebody bumped their head, just for
Oh
the record.
no.
They're okay. Mommy's on it. But just if you hear any screaming, that's why. It's screaming is frequent around here. Usually
And you
not
got
me,
lots of
but sometimes.
kids.
Yeah, we got 3 here, and so sometimes I shriek just out of sheer terror myself, but not often. I do want to say one thing. When I was doing my agenda thing a moment ago, because I normally in my own graph have that driven by a template, I forgot to indent under agenda. So if you were looking at my agenda before, most definitely I would indent my agenda under agenda. I wouldn't leave it all on the top level there. Just for the record, as the fellow who made the indent with intent video that gets referenced to me, I do want to point out that I do remember generally to indent under the things that I mean to indent under. I think that Tracy, the things that you were talking about there, And the way that you have your page set up is so incredible, and it kind of harkens back to what I was saying about power users and their own graph. I have almost always, I add a few things, I mess around with them, and then I find my way back toward something simpler. You know what? I'm just going to share my regular graph here. Why not?
That's kind of what I ended up doing.
Yes, I'm just going to share my main graph here. I don't think I have anything in here that's going to be of any concern. It'll take a second to load because there's a lot going on. But it's whenever I have tried to add more things, like more sections to work with, I always find myself less likely to go work in those areas. Now, sometimes, obviously, you can open things in the sidebar. You can even open a separate instance of Rome if you're so inclined, but the excuse me. But I find for myself that the more areas there are to mentally track, the less likely I am, to do that and to be part of that. So I have essentially what I have on my daily page here is I have a morning plan, which I haven't even done this morning, which is just 3 questions to get me, centered on the day. I have my agenda that I showed you all there, how I did that on the other page. And then I have my daily tasks, which is, if you took my task management course or anything like that, the daily tasks is where I'm running my recurring task system, which affects my agenda. Then I have my calendar down below, and then I also have in my linked references anything that has built-in, date from the previous day. I use a little postpone tag that I haven't even mentioned in the task management course because I just created it, that I bring in from, I've been using it about 2 weeks and I really like it. That I use to things, maybe if it were daily tasks from 2 days ago, and I'm like, you know what, I don't want to actually do that today.
Hey, RJ,
I'm going to move that forward. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Super quick question. What does AP stand for?
Oh, okay. So in my AP productivity course thing, so there's a little bit of a play on words, but there's also a I guess it's just 2 plays on words. AP in at least in my region of the country, when you put AP in front of the name of a course, it means like advanced placement, meaning higher level. So AP productivity on one level means high level productivity, but also, and here's where I'm just so clever, Tracy, all of the concepts in the framework start with a P, the letter P. So you have productivity, and you have process, and you have priorities and points and plans and patterns. And so AP means high level productivity. It also means that every piece of the framework starts with AP. I am really just so clever. And I'm making fun of myself in case that isn't clear right now. But when I'm talking about AP productivity, that's what I'm talking about, my system that helps me make sure that I don't get bogged down in my GTD in the urgent, and that I stay focused on the big picture. That's what it is. If that was what hopefully that was what the question was addressing. Yep. But anyway, so this is then what you'll see. I do all my various writing, my prep for, we had talked about what we wanted the outline to be, and I was, laying some of that out. This is actually a third draft built on a couple of drafts from previous days when I was building out, what that was. I have another draft to work on the thing for this evening with him. So I use light CSS, but for me, if I have more, at least for right now, if I have more than this on my page, if it's something that I'm going to engage regularly throughout the day, I can't have a location that I need to go to interact with it there. I just use a tag to make sure that it'll show up there. Once I need to review it, I go to the page and I can filter and do all of that. This is, by the way, in case anybody, one of my big things is and this is one of the things I do with my Rome coachings. Somebody will ask me, okay, well, how do I accomplish this thing I'm trying to accomplish? It's like, well, there are about 73 different ways you could accomplish that. Let's find the one that works the way your brain works. And so my goal is never to say, this is how you should do it. This is the right way. This is the right way for me. This is the way that has, over time, as I've used it, it has worked for me. Tracy's way is working for her. I may change my mind entirely tomorrow. I don't know. And that's what's so amazing about Rome research, is that I can change my mind tomorrow and I don't lose anything of the things that I had in the past. I can rename a tag and suddenly everything's called something else. And it's all still linked, and I can still go, back into that stuff, and it's not going to get lost just because I changed the way I do something tomorrow. So when in showing these things, think of them as ways to pattern what you're doing and ways to enhance what you're doing, but not, this is not the way to do it. It's a way to do it.
Yeah. I love this. And in fact, I've lost the thread. Somebody had a great idea that we could just totally nerd out on doing a live video call and have everybody spend 5 minutes showing their daily notes page setup or their interstitial journal setup. That is so cool.
That is a good plan. And that's actually kind of similar to what Khalil set up for the Inner Intellect tonight, because we're not talking about journaling, we're talking about productivity, and everybody's going to share their, which I think it is just like this was my first YouTube live, tonight is my first Inner Intellect as well. But the vibe of Inner Intellect is the sharing. The hosts don't, tell people what to do or anything like that. It's more just kind of everybody shares what they're doing. So there's something, I think it's a great idea. Whoever posted that, I agree. I think that'd be really cool to do a group call like that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Khalil, and then we'll kind of, the questions are dying down just a little bit. But we can talk. The people are really interested in getting more of your productivity system, your GTD system. So before you dive into that,
Sure.
Tell us how you would connect to this workshop with Khalil, because that sounds fun.
Sure. It's called Rewrite the Stars, and let me just do this. I'll just grab a link to it here, and drop it in the graph there, and then I'll also drop it in the chat. And I know, again, forgive me, I am a bit of a newbie to Inner Intellect, not a bit, an entire newbie. But I think there's a limited number of spaces open. So it's not like a call that can just have a whole bunch of people. And I think that's kind of the idea, is that if you're going to share stuff, it would just go on forever if there were hundreds of people there, so it is kind of limited in scope. And I just shared that there in the chat, and I'll put it here in the page that we're doing that as well. Cool. But I apologize. I'm now in my mode of trying to do two things at once here. On Inner Intellect, Control K brings up the link thing, and then you can add the, anybody doesn't know how to do a link on Roman alias, Control K will bring that up for you. But that event is an opportunity for productivity people to kind of share what they're doing. I have my existing course, Powerful Task Management in Rome Research, which is effectively my structure for GTD as a course, and how you can learn how I built GTD into Rome, and how all of that works. So it's a fairly, I think there's about 3 hours of video content in that, and a bunch of links over to my public graph with the actual templates and things like that. So it's very accessible. And if you don't know anything about Rome yet, I include a link to my free course, The Roman Way, where you can kind of learn the basics in case there's anything that might be confusing to somebody who doesn't know Rome yet.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that seems to have helped a number of people, particularly if you have a GTD mindset and background already. It can feel a little like, how in the world am I supposed to make that happen in Rome? And I think I would never again suggest that my way is the only way, but I do think I've built a pretty effective way that has worked for me for a solid year now. And I don't believe even when I was doing GTD and Todoist before, I don't think I ever went a full year without kind of revamping a few things. So I feel very comfortable that things are functioning nicely in Rome. And then I mentioned that AP productivity course. It's going to be a live cohort thing. It's going to launch beginning of July. It's not open for registration yet, but I'll put up a link to how you can sign up to get an email reminder for that if you're interested. And that's just kind of since I did the GTD thing, I also want to make sure I put that in a larger context. I had a few people say, "Okay, great, now I have all my tasks. How do I know what's important? How do I focus on what's meaningful and fulfilling, and how do I make that a part of my big picture?" And so that's what AP productivity is about, is getting the work that you're doing aligned with the things that are important to you. And that's why I want to do it as a live course. It's much more coaching oriented. I think that it's something. I mean, it costs a little more because of that, because I'm engaged in an active back and forth. But I think the value of that is going to be significant. So I hope that that's something that will be valuable.
It's exciting
as well.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to share something before I kind of share about 5 days to Rome. This is Fabrice. Can you see this? Fabrice has done an incredible amount of work to put together his form of interstitial journaling. If you are new to Rome, you might not want to try this yet, just because Chris is the creator of Rome 42, and now David Vargas has taken that over. But it does take a little bit of know-how to get it set up right. They've made it really easy to do, but pretty often, if you're new to Rome, what you're doing is, kind of chasing this text stuff, and you're not putting stuff in. However, if you do find that interstitial journaling is working for you, and you also want to log your time for billing hours, you gotta do Fabrice's method, because it is simple. It's amazing. It does take a little bit of getting used to. For me, the way I've kind of put my CSS sprinkles in my graph works better for me. But it would have been irresponsible of us to talk about interstitial journaling without introducing Fabrice's just amazing workmanship. So I wanted to share that. I have a course called 5 Days to Rome. I have a huge course that I launched last fall. I need to relaunch it to offer some Rome 42 smart blocks and some Rome onboard templates. That template engine has changed everything, so I need to rework that. So instead, I'll share with you 5 Days to Rome. It's a course I built so that, number one, it's affordable in terms of dollars. And I also built it so that you could get a taste of Rome in about 5 days if you're interested in just doing the 30-day Rome trial. Because again, what happens sometimes with new users is we spend that 30 days of a trial learning all of this stuff and nerding out on it, and then we get overwhelmed and we don't know how to use it. 5 Days to Rome is designed so that you can conduct a series of experiments with 5 key journaling techniques. And I know that these 5 techniques are the most interesting because I built it off 2 sets of atomic essays I wrote with Ship 30 for 30. And these were the top 5 um, techniques that I wrote about over the course of 2 30-day cohort experiments with Ship 30 for 30. And it's going very well. And in fact, people are using 5 Days to Rome to solve problems that I never imagined that I could help people with. And it's deeply gratifying to be able to offer a course for $27, and it's changing a lot of things and opening a lot of doors for people. So that's kind of my pitch for a course. And this has been so much fun. I love the engagement that we're getting on YouTube. Rome Hacker says this is also meta. Yeah.
I like meta hacker. That's fun.
Meta hacker.
Yeah, Nikki just said something I think is so powerful. She said there, Rome works how my brain works. And I think what's so marvelous about Rome is that's true almost regardless how your brain works, because Rome will begin to reflect back to you what you put into Rome. And it's one of the challenges of, we're talking about interstitial journaling here specifically. And that's such a great sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Microcosm for Rome use in general, because it is very much, those the thoughts that you're doing right now is what you're putting on the screen in interstitial journaling. I suppose that's true with almost anything, but it's like it's meta about thoughts. It's not just it's not that it's another level on that front. And I think that Rome, a lot of times, and the challenge for onboarding in Rome is that people have a sense that, okay, here's Rome. These are the things it's supposed to do for me. Why isn't that happening? And it's because Rome is just you. Rome is just what you put into it. And now there are some best practices like indenting and referencing pages and referencing blocks and things like that that will make it more efficient at becoming you. But it's you. And it's why it's such a great tool for Zettelkasten, because that is a form of you. It's why it's a great form for GTD, because that's you telling future you what to do. And it's why it's so lovely for this interstitial journaling, because that's you talking to you. And so it's know that if I saw a couple of people saying they just kind of started out, and I see nothing else works like Nikki's brains works. Okay, well I get that too. It does feel, doesn't it, that when you come into Rome, it's like, oh my gosh, it gets me. Like I know what this, I know what I'm supposed to do here, because I don't need to know what I'm supposed to do here. Man, was that Zen? Does that make any sense? I know what I need to do because I don't need to know what I need to do. I think it makes sense. It makes sense to me because I just do. I just do. I work. I write. Am I thinking this? I write it down. Does this need to be connected to something else? I tag it. Is this, I don't have to think before I think. And if I'm working and I won't say, I won't pick it on any other softwares here. If I'm thinking in most other programs, I have to think about what I'm going to think about and then structure a thing that can support what I'm going to think about. But the problem is I haven't thought about it yet. So how do I know how it's supposed to be structured?
And then by the time I get the thing open and get to where I'm supposed to be, I forgot what I was thinking. Yes,
exactly. And that's what's so amazing with Rome, is that I think it, I write it, I tag it if it's something that needs a tag, and then it will be there for me to converse with later, to interact with, to learn from, to grow from, to build with. And it's I've not encountered anything that allows that kind of bottom up thinking before.
Yes.
So I think that I mean, not to get too far afield from it. I don't think it is, because it's so much a part of what interstitial journaling is for me. But to kind of draw it back into that, that's what the opportunity is for me with journaling in general, and with the interstitial journaling, is it's shaping. It's the way I think as I think. You know what? Here's a good analogy. This would work for Bo. I don't know if Bo's around or not, but because he knows, because I work with actors. I'm a music guy, but I work with actors, and I've done a ton of work in theater. And being available and being present in the moment means that I can't be thinking about what it is that I'm doing right now. The thinking is the doing. The discovery is what's interesting. When you're coaching somebody in a scene or a song, very often as performers, actors will telegraph the end because they know where the story's going, because they had to memorize it. the actors that we love, the actors that create the greatest performances, are discovering as they go. Even though they already know it, they're discovering as they go. What Rome facilitates for us is the capacity to discover as we go. So that we don't have to have it pre-structured. We know and we discover as we write, as we interact with ourselves, as with each other. Because here we are, we have Rome things going, and you and I are talking, and there's a group of people over here in the chat, including us. It's a wild and crazy thing here, and I don't know the intellect. I think the intellect ticket does cost $15. Amato, I'm not. Yes, I think Norm answered it there already. But that's what the interstitial journaling is for me, is discovery. And I discover it here and now in the moment through the medium of interstitial journaling.
I want to answer one more question. Isaiah asks, are there any existing plugins that try to do any actual graph theory analysis, edge node weighting? I'm not familiar with the term edge node weighting, but
I'm not either. Sorry, Isaiah. That sounds. I think we do have Rome Hacker and some others in here that may have a better answer for that question than I would.
Yeah.
But I think that for me, Rome is very much about what it facilitates for me, and I don't exactly know sometimes what's going on under the surface. Just as long as it behaves in a way that I can expect it to behave. So I don't know about that.
What about Rome Portal? Does Rome Portal do some of that maybe?
It may. I have not. One thing to know about me, the folks out there in the world, is I don't really use a lot of the plugins. I do use Rome 42. It facilitates a few things that I think are really valuable.
Yep.
And I use some of David Vargas's tools as well, but I don't use a lot. I think native Rome does almost everything that I need it to do, and it's not that. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that those extensions aren't amazing tools and valuable for the way some people work. I just find that I can get distracted by those rather than, and then I wind up worrying about how to set up my extensions rather than doing the actual work that I'm trying to do. So I'm not a great resource for extension stuff.
I agree. And I think it is so important that as you're installing something, understand what you want to do. So if you're going to install something, create a note in Rome that says, review this in 7 days. If you're not using it, then uninstall it, because otherwise you're spending too much of that attention trying to figure out how to use it. And if it's not working for you after 7 days, it's like, if you haven't worn something in 6 months in your closet, it's time to move it along. So yeah.
I think that's a great analogy. And that's very much what I do with my, rolling daily notes template, is that I'm constantly looking for, have I actually been using this thing? And if not, do I need it, or does it need to be in some other format? That's how my interstitial journaling got to be a thing that I just use in tags in the flow of, projects and in between projects and things like that, because I found that I was not going back to the log tag to add them there. So if I wasn't using it, what does that mean? I don't need it, or does that mean that I need it to be in a different format? And in this case, I needed it to be in a different format.
Yes, I love that. RJ, you are just so much fun, and you are filled with wisdom and insight. And thank you for doing this with me. This is truly a team effort. I mean, we both just said, back when I was a kid, we didn't have a whole lot of money, and we lived in a little neighborhood that was, just middle class, young families. And it gets hot in Arkansas in July. And no one family had the money or the resources to make ice cream and invite everybody over. So I can remember distinctly as a 3-year-old hearing Dixie holla, "I got some milk," and Sylvia hollering, "I got the sugar." And my dad or somebody else would say, "I got the beer," you know. And all that meant was that ice cream was coming, and whoever brought the eggs, that might mean that we didn't have eggs for breakfast anymore until the money said we could go to the grocery store again. And that's what it feels like to do Rome. And it's what this workshop feels like with you, is that we just brought our biggest strengths, and the audience is also a huge part of that, because there's no point in doing this unless our people are bringing our questions, because that helps us understand what you want and what you need. And it is a gift to me to be able to provide those answers, whether it's through me or Fabrice or Andy Henson or Rome Hacker or RJ talking about IJ. So thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Yes, it has. And I mean, you say all those lovely things about me, and the best I can say is I feel the same way about you. I think it's every conversation we've had, every interaction that we've had, it has been enlightening. It has been calming. It has been engaging and uplifting and mind blowing, and and the Rome community at large. I may have said this to you, Tracy. I don't recall, but I know I've said it to a couple other people. The thing that blows my mind about the Rome community, and I don't mean to say that there haven't been arguments and there haven't been negative things said by people sometimes, and I'm not picking on that. Sometimes those things happen. I personally have never once in over a year had a negative interaction with anybody in the Rome Twitter space.
Mhm.
How is that possible on Twitter that I didn't have a negative interaction in over a year? Well, it's because we're there to support one another, and we're there to learn from one another. And those are the things that gather momentum. And it's just incredible. And I never would have met you if it hadn't been for that. I never would have. I'm in Morgantown, West Virginia. It's a college town, so it is more diverse than the rest of West Virginia. But it's still not. I get the opportunity to, through this platform, communicate with people all over the world who are of like mind and of like intention and want to just make the world a better place by being better people and accomplishing more important things. Like, how'd I get so lucky? How'd I get so lucky? So I think it's wonderful. It's wonderful to talk to you, Tracy, always, and we should do some other of these and look for opportunities to do it. And thanks to everybody in the chat there. I think that you all are amazing as well, and it's just incredible. So I'm gonna shut up, because all of that boils down to I love y'all, and I think it's fantastic. Yes.
Same here. We'll post a link to this on Twitter. I'll also send an email to those who signed up on the landing page to get the reminders. And then this replay will live on YouTube. Feel free to share it with whomever you would like. And thank you. Much love.
Take care, everybody. Thank you. Off live here. Now you get to watch me try to figure out how to make this live stop. Live, skip ahead. Nope, that's not it. This may be the greatest thing that anybody ever gets to watch, is just me trying to stop this from happening. This is going to be spectacular. That's hilarious. I don't want to end the call with Tracy. I want to continue to talk to her. So how do I stop this from happening? Somebody in the chat, tell me how to make this end. Please.
I'd tell you if I could.
I know. Isn't there am I not up live here? Skip ahead. Okay, that maybe helped a little. I don't know. Autoplay is on. I love this. This is the most fantastic thing ever. that I cannot figure out how to stop this? Do I just yeah, I know. Isaiah says this is after the credits roll. Yes, this is literally me. You are just watching me try to figure out how to make this thing stop. This is great. Did I just make it stop? I don't know. I think I did. I think it's over now. Though we probably shouldn't say anything bad about anybody at this point.